Hi everyone, my name is Melina Landrio and welcome back to my channel. Today is the 25th of April. This is a timeless message. I think this could be of helpful or of benefit for somebody at any point in their circumstance. If this video is calling to you, if it's crossing your path, there is likely a reason. On April the 21st, in the afternoon, I started to see the number sequence 1221, and I started to what I would think when I saw this number sequence is like it was like a mirror reflection or like the opposite spectrum. I also saw the number sequence 1251, and that kind of brought this illumination of like a mimicking of sorts, perhaps masquerading as something that you're not, or living in someone else's reality. Now, I began around this time, I also began actually, I should mention that this is April the 21st where I started seeing this number sequence. Now, from this point, I had many types of experiences occur that led me to bring all of this information together today to share with you the way that I have written it out. So with that said, on the 21st, I began to feel yet another sensation in my body. And this time it was in my left thigh. Then it became illuminated to me that God is wanting me to share my experience with these sensations to illuminate a process which led me to understand what was occurring in my surroundings my entire life. So what I'm understanding from sharing this is that this message is going to help someone in understanding or perhaps having a greater awareness in a circumstance that they are having to deal with today. Okay? So with all that said, spiritual warfare isn't something that I would have ever thought would happen to me. And if you are someone who is observing this video today and you believe the same thing, like it's not something that you don't think would ever happen to you, this thought process alone, I do want to encourage you to continue to share space with me as I move forward in this video and listen to a part of my story as to why I changed my mind in understanding that spiritual warfare was happening to me. I feel like this could be of significance for somebody. So before I get into the symptomatic experience, which I will explain a little later on, because somebody is experiencing a particular symptom, and I'm going to express how I experience it. Because there is always, it doesn't change much. Okay. So before I get into the symptomatic experience to help someone understand a dynamic in their life, and I need to express that someone is experiencing spiritual warfare and they are not correlating it as anything of importance. So I will first reflect upon why one might not want to engage in understanding, recognizing, or even accepting that spiritual warfare could be of significance in one's life. I believe this will lead to a greater understanding for someone, and this is an important message for me to get across as I have lived a lifetime in it without considering its possibility. Okay? So this, for some, may become a triggering experience. So just to give you a heads up, because this is going to illuminate an area of your life that you may not have wanted to consciously embrace. You have been aware of something, but maybe not willing to go there. And I understand with this experience of obtaining the information and connecting to all that I know of what I have experienced, I understand that to embrace this experience would be an answered prayer for somebody. And I know that it was that for myself. So please utilize your own discernment as we move forward. I'm not a medical professional by any means, so if this resonates with you, I do encourage you, if need be, to reach out to a trusted professional in the nature that you require, okay? So with all that expressed, my questions for you regarding spiritual warfare is, why wouldn't someone believe in an experience that might be a sudden or constant reality in their life? So perhaps your daily struggle is not your usual homeostasis. That could be in your emotions, for example. Maybe you're experiencing a lot of ups and downs and you just kind of live with it and you don't really question it. Or perhaps maybe a physical experience without explanation. Like maybe you're receiving heart palpitations and you go to the doctor and there's no explanation for them. And so you just learn to deal with it as if it's nothing. No further questioning. So that's another circumstance with it. There's also a mental experience. So like having unusual thoughts that are opposite of your normal, like your normal thought process. So perhaps like you're normally a very confident person, but then all of a sudden you start experiencing like some insecurities or some self-worth or issues or self-doubt in yourself, which is like not your usual, especially when it comes to like a particular dynamic that you are extremely confident in. Excuse me. And you go into this like these issues, these all of a sudden self-worth issues, or this like discard of your credibility, your credibility in the confidence that you have, and you do it without question, and you just go into this loop of this new existence in your life. Or perhaps its nature is constant and you have always disassociated from it, implying that the reality that you have lived, perhaps living within, is pertaining to a construct of sorts, and one you may not be accurately perceiving, as what you understand is not aligning with what is acutely occurring, if that makes any sense. And all of this will lead you into a state of confusion or despair, and you may also be questioning yourself in your reflections. So I just want to emphasize as a note, perhaps, if you are reflecting on your daily occurrences, although it may feel overwhelming to you, I want to share that reflection was the sign that broke the illusion of what was occurring in my life. And it is encouraging change. Okay, your reflection is going to encourage change. So if you're not happy with the circumstance in your life, the only way into that circumstance is to reflect into it. A lot of people in our society choose to avoid that experience and they go to an easy fix. Some people have anxiety or depression instead of understanding what that is. And I'm not by any means telling you not to take medication, but I am going to point out that a lot of people will choose to take a pill and not reflect upon their situation just as long as it disappears. This is what I mean by it. So reflection will bring questions and understanding. And I think that what I'm understanding is somebody has been praying for change. And this is the opportunity to realign in yourself, in your interactions, and those in your surroundings by merely reflecting upon everything that you're experiencing. It's like I began to question everyone in my life, everything, including my own behaviors, and why I responded or felt unbothered in circumstances that seemed to enforce some sort of opposition in my life, and things that needed to be questioned. You know, like when something all of a sudden changes structure and it's not your norm, and like, you know, there's only so much of that you could go through before you actually start to invoke questioning it. At least this was in my experience. And then I finally engaged with myself, which was like a super crucial moment in my life because I had thought my entire life that I was engaging in myself. So this is like the pivotal point, I think, of the message, is that sometimes we are in this belief that we are consciously aware of our surroundings and our environment. We're consciously playing in our life when in actuality we're not. So there is a point where I finally engaged within myself. And it was important because I was living in this cycle of I was living in a cycle, a lifetime of cycles, really, um, that that was constantly met with another layer of toxicity that I was immune to, as it was my family's homeostasis. So once you begin to reflect upon this, you start to understand the cycle and its effects in your dynamic. And I think also important to mention is that often in our family circumstances, we don't dare question circumstances or the norm. And so sometimes like a serious event occurs where everything shakes up and you have no other way to entertain it but to reflect on what is going on. So an important part of this is non-conscious reality, and is accepted and more common than you may realize. Individually and from a familial standpoint, it starts with generational curses and the behaviors that stem from them. So over time and a lot of pain and suffering, I continued to reflect upon my life's choices, and I finally came to a place where it was very clear what needed to be done to end this non-conscious reality. So understand, this wasn't just a one-time experience. This was cultivated from trial and error, from hitting rock bottom, from tremendous pain and suffering that surfaced as related to the choices I had made, choices I learned from my upbringing. So when I started to understand in my own personal reflections the bigger picture of what was actually occurring, I changed my trajectory from what I knew in non-conscious perceptions and analyzed my entire experience of what I have lived within to see that it has led me into this constant struggle. And this adjustment from my reflections saved me. It saved me. And it also saved my lineage, because moving forward, I broke generational curses, several of them. I broke several generational curses in this instance of reflection. And it all began with acknowledging and questioning my non-conscious reality. It's of importance for me to illuminate this today for you, okay? So something to consider when in reflection is how you grew up. It's like I grew up in an environment that normalized toxicity and projected a facade of a happy family. And maybe this is familiar to you in many families. Excuse me. In many families, addictions are normalized. Discarding human emotions and experience are normalized and placed as irrelevant in comparison to something more prominent or of magnitude in experience. There's like the scale of what's more important when it comes to an emotional experience in a toxic situation, in a non-conscious toxic type of family dynamic. Objectifying behaviors are normalized as well, especially towards women. And playing small is normalized, especially in the experiences of pain or trauma. Sorry, Spirit wants me to also mention that objectifying behaviors are normalized, especially towards women, but also, and sadly, it can be towards children as well. Playing small is normalized, especially in the experience of pain or trauma. So if you experience some traumatic experience, you normalize not expressing it, because over time you've learned that that's what you've had to do to be able to exist in your environment. Okay? And there was also a silent undertone within my family. Like I was shushed when I spoke my truth. And I was also gaslit and manipulated my entire life to remain silent in appeasing the needs of another and their internal struggles with perception. So this could be also a reflection that you might be experiencing. Perhaps a big dark secret in your family's closet is something to reflect upon. I have recently come into much awareness about one in mine and the secrecy of pain and turmoil that ended up creating the toxic environment that I was raised in, illuminated quite significantly. So, you can become your own detective in your life when nobody is telling you the truth. And everything is leading to you being silenced in your pain, right? As long as you are silenced in your pain, everybody else's needs are met. But what happens to you? Why are you insignificant? So these are questions to really ponder about, because nobody in your family is going to acknowledge the toxicity in their existence and refuse to take any ownership for the realities that they play in them. Often they're led in manipulation and gaslighting tactics. And this is by design to continue a cycle, okay? Because a lot of the time when cycles occur, people are comfortable in them. They don't want to poke the beast of the cycle. And then you have somebody who comes into alignment in the family that is the person who's supposed to poke the beast. So that is who I am in my family. And I'm not very well liked because of it. As you reflect on your upbringing, it can become uncomfortable and is very challenging, okay? And because your truth rises and is not always the truth that you want to hear, we are told all families are loving. But for many, it can become heartbreaking in some instances when you begin to receive your true understanding of what has been a loving family in your experience. So please know there is a blessing in this deep dive within, okay? Its blessing can deem to be greater as it leads to awareness of thyself. And this creates congruent understanding in why you choose non-conscious behaviors. And perhaps this reflection will enable you to understand the support you had versus the support that you needed. And the reality of what is developed becomes quite clear. This is how you begin to formulate a structure of change, one without the toxic cycles of your past. It is also prevalent to learn to have grace and forgive yourself. It is easier said than done, as it requires further depth in understanding, and you gain that in reflection. But reaching this point is the base foundation of structural change in your everyday life. So things to consider, like that I would consider, what kind of kid were you? Even further, like if you were to dive beyond just your childhood, what kind of teenager were you? What kind of young adult were you? What kind of adult are you? Just the reflection of how you are entertaining your life is super crucial. So what kind of kid were you? Were there any disputes over your character or your natural homeostasis? So as an example, I was a sensitive child and I was shamed my entire life for it. My sensitivity created discord for others, especially when I was manipulated and the construct did not match the reality of my circumstances. So an example that often was hard for me to understand was when someone would tell me that they love me, like somebody that doesn't really know me very well, or even people who know me well, like people in my family. But when someone would tell me that they love me, but they actually hated me, as a sensitive, I can feel the intention of others stronger than what my observations were when I live in a non-conscious reality. And what happens is it doesn't line up, and then it becomes really confusing. So you kind of like, you go through that repetitive notion of confusion until you're ready to question it. Okay? So this is relevant for somebody. And this creates the disassociation that I spoke of earlier. And for a young child being gaslit or manipulated, this is what leads to a non-conscious reality. So another question to consider is, what made you different than your environment or created conflict within your environment? So from the beginning, I connected easily with spirit, and this made many of my family uneasy and nervous. There was a perceptual experience that caused discord, and my abilities to connect with spirit proved difficult for those with familial closet secrets. I was told not to converse with spirit and manipulated that I would appear crazy like my dad. And this was their way to deter me from deepening or developing strength in my gifts. These were God-given gifts that I had received from God as my birthright. And I would be deterred away from them, all the while this would appease someone else's needs. So this, another note to add to this understanding is that my father was actually diagnosed with schizophrenia. So when I was young and his diagnosis was utilized to deter me, it was like a form of it was utilized to gaslight me from my God-given gifts, because they didn't want me to use them. It scared them, right? So being sick also was scary to watch, right? Watching somebody go through mental health issues is a scary dynamic to observe. So this pulled me away from, because they knew this would be how I would react, because there was so much manipulation and gaslighting to create this idea that the world has of mental illness. And this is in the 80s, right? So this idea that the world has of mental illness at that time really reflected for me to avoid doing these God-given gifts, because it was always enhanced or highlighted that was what my dad does. And it made me think I was crazy most of my life. And this pulled me away from my purpose and my mission in this life. It really deterred me from entertaining these gifts, okay? So this is also something of relation to spiritual warfare and why you might not be aware of it in your life. So how were you held in your emotions? This is another thing to contemplate, because it was often the case as a child when things scared me or I didn't understand what I was experiencing, that I would be met as an inconvenience to the day. So usually remedied with a negative response to how I'm taking up too much space. And sometimes I cried at night in my crib with no response at all. And I remember having like this bald spot on the back of my head, because for me as a child, I didn't get consoled I think often, and I ended up rocking back and forth as a way to comfort myself from the physical or emotional experience that I was living that surrounded me. So when you are neglected, and those that are, I'm not gonna get into that. Anyways, when you are neglected, you will naturally figure out a way to remedy for yourself the only way you know how to. Okay. And finally, does your truth create some form of rejection or abandonment, maybe neglect or fear for those in your surroundings? And do you continue living in your truth? Or do you find that you appease others' needs in hopes to not create disruption for another? This is things that you should be asking yourself. This is great reflections, especially when you are experiencing something that's just not explainable in your life, and you're not really sure what's going on. This is something that's kind of like leading you to understand you need to start asking questions about yourself. So like when you are living non-consciously and you are not aware of the things that are going on around you, like you are not going to see the things that are blatantly in front of you. And when you are in constant gaslit or manipulated to believe toxicity is normal, then you are going to believe that. So you are likely going to go out in the world and embrace toxic relationships, environments, and choices. And this is all by design, as this leads you to a choice. So the choice is to continue in your effort, to continue in your comfort in what you have been taught, or to take a leap of faith and begin to embrace how you are experiencing this dynamic. So this is consciously becoming aware that you matter, And the depth of this change moving forward remains in not entertaining past non-conscious behaviors as your homeostasis. And I know I'm going into great depth with all of this, but this is all to reach a point in understanding how spiritual warfare can be experienced, tangibly speaking. But this information is what formulated me to be able to better protect myself and my family as I chose the route of change and embraced it for all that it was. So sometimes the most difficult observations from creating the changes that you want in your life is the change that arose in others from finally greeting you in your reality, within your truth, in all your authenticity, as it rises far greater than anyone could have comprehended. Remember, in toxic structures, there is like an elephant in the room. Those people in your life choose to ignore you. They choose and pretend that your existence was irrelevant, is irrelevant, or meek. And it's not necessary to explain to anyone the reality that settles when the illusion is pierced in your reflections. You just continue to move forward in the direction that you're heading. You know where you don't want to be. At this point, you've had enough, right? This is pure awareness from your reflection. You've had enough and you know the direction you're going. And the illusion lifts as the dust settles in the truth of it all anyways. So like, nobody can hide from the truth. It'll always come out. So now it's time to challenge your awareness and become aware of the life that you are formulating into and release what has always been. It's understanding that there is a commitment involved in intertwining between the two. Okay? The choice is ultimately yours. It's deciding, do you want to maintain the hamster wheel experience that you have had up to this point? Or do you want to begin stepping into a fresh reality of conscious behavior, looking for the opposite of what you have always known to be true? The opposite of what you have known to be true will lead you to your ultimate reality as you reflect and decipher on your wants and your needs, and this becomes abundantly clear where you need to go. And all this to say, this all began with this sensation that I had in my left thigh. Okay? I had this, I'm just sitting there and all of a sudden I get this like pinch. It could be felt in a couple of ways. Okay? So the pinch could be literally like a pinch or a stabbing sensation. Like just all of a sudden you feel like you're jabbed in your foot or in your eyeball, or like pain in your head. I'm going to specifically go into the thigh though, because God is directing me that this is something that somebody is experiencing. So I had this like pinch in the side of my leg. And what happens, energetically speaking, I'm going to try to describe this experience. It's almost like when you go to the doctors and you get a needle. And you know, sometimes you get those needles that you just feel the pinch and then nothing. It's like that. It's like a quick pinch, gone. So you're not really going to think twice. It's there for a second. You might like be like, what was that? And then it doesn't happen any further. So then you just ignore it. But if you were to actually consciously become aware of this pinch and just focus your energy, like bringing your energy to the spot that you felt it for a moment. Okay. What you might start to feel is an expansion of energy. So this could feel like, I felt this in numerous ways. This can feel like a radiating experience. Like it could feel like a puckering up, like a bubbling of energy underneath. Like you could just sense that there's like, you know, when you sit on your leg and you sit on it for an amount of time and then you go to get up and your legs sleep and you get that pins and needles experience. It's the experience that you feel without the pins and needles. Like there's an energetic component to that. And that's what I'm talking about, that surrounds the area where you get the prick. And it'll just be a quick illumination of it. Okay. So if you have an illumination like this and you're aware that there's something more to it, what I want to encourage you to understand is that you are likely experiencing somebody trying to siphon your energy. Okay. And I know this from my own personal experiences with people trying to constantly go in to my sacral and my solar chakra, my heart chakra, my crown chakra, my throat, and my third eye. All feel different. But what I've noticed about the thigh in particular, that's how it feels. And sometimes it can bring a burning sensation as well, where you feel like a burn going up, or you feel like a sharp pain. And I feel like it's like not so much the pain that you're feeling, it's the intention of the pain that you're feeling. So if you were to really hone in on that prick, that little prick feeling, that pinch, whatever that was for you, you might find there's more of a story to it. And you don't go into it like looking for it, creating the story. You're going to know. You can ask Archangel Michael, you can ask your spirit guides. you could ask for God to really illuminate, Archangel Michael to really illuminate the truth of what you're experiencing. And I would always bring in God, and I would always bring in Archangel Michael when I have things like this, because nobody else is going to get to the source of healing it or removing it more than God. Okay? More than Archangel Michael. So I would always bring the two into the circumstance when I'm experiencing some form of spiritual warfare. So if you don't know what you're experiencing, but you feel like it might be more, bring to your awareness by bringing asking God to rebuke it. And that's all you have to do. God, I have a pain in my left thigh. I don't know what it is. I don't accept it, and I rebuke it. In your name, God, please rebuke it for me. And that's it. That's all you have to do. And you'll notice it'll go away. And it might come back again because somebody keeps persisting. So then you'll know. And you just keep persisting with God. God is more powerful than anybody. All these people who send the spiritual warfare, they think they're so powerful, and they believe that they're like more powerful than God. And it's fascinating to me because it's like God created everything, even what you're utilizing for spiritual warfare. So it's like you don't think that God's going to be able to combat that or get through it or remove it or whatever. Anyhow, it's just, that's what somebody needs to hear today. You are experiencing pinching. You're experiencing stabbing in some place of your body. Now, when you really start to hone in on this energy, and let's say you are experiencing spiritual warfare and this is what you believe it is, that's all you have to do is keep rebuking it. You can return it to sender too. That's something that you could do. If somebody wants to dish it out to you, give it to God and say, please return it to sender, and God will allocate it the way that it needs to be allocated. Because God sees it all. And, just go about your life. And if it continues, like as you learn this, you can talk to God and Archangel Michael to ask what's necessary to move forward from there. But somebody in particular is experiencing pinches, stabbing type sensations, maybe a bit of burning. You're probably feeling as an experience, as a normal. If someone is siphoning your energy, you're probably feeling like, you might even be feeling like some dizzy spells. You might be feeling just tired at unusual times of the day. Just know that this is somebody's trying to siphon your energy, or they are succeeding at it. They've tapped in, and that's not that that's okay, but you could still talk to God and get rid of it, remove it. And then in that instance, like if it's been going on for a while, I do encourage you to also, once you rebuke it, call back all your power and call back all your energy, because nobody deserves to take your energy. Nobody has the right to come in and do that. And you choose who has the right to be in your life or not, and who you want to give your energy to. So somebody is going in, tapping on your energy. It's likely somebody that you know. It's hardly a stranger. And if it is a stranger, they're not going to be persistent with it. The people are persistent with it are the people that are envious of your life, that likely know you very well. There's something about you that maybe they want to emanate, or they feel is of importance to them for whatever reason. They're essentially focusing on your green lawn and not their own. So, just keep being mindful. You want to break out of these toxic cycles. You want to break out of this toxic behavior. You want to move into a change in your life, a change in your infrastructure. You're sick of the way things have been. It's been illuminated to you that things need to change. This is what I'm going to encourage you to do. You're going to start to look ahead and not behind. Just keep rebuking it. Have a relationship with God. If you don't have one, repent if you need to. Ask God to help you, and you'll see how loving and magnificent God really is. Because in my entire life, the people in my life were never really there for me. They would look like they're there for me. They would make it very clear when they've helped me. But in the reality of it all is I was really left alone much of the time in a lot of turmoil and anguish. And I had to grow in it on my own. I had to do everything on my own in my life. And, the only beings that ever had me, that I ever truly knew had me, were the ones that my family would go and try to make me scared of, or people in my life that I would meet would utilize it against me to try to create some sort of rift between me and my conscious reality of having a connection with God. So your spirituality is super important. It's an important component of our life. And I'm not going to get into the religion of it all, because for me, my relationship with God is a personal one. It's one that I have had tried, tested, and true my entire life. And my relationship with God is my personal and my own relationship. So I cannot compare my relationship to yours, because I don't know what yours has been. I know what God has been for me in my life. I know what God has showed me and the miracles that God has provided for me. And so that is enough for me to know that God exists. That's enough to me to know that God is good. And that's enough to me to know that nothing is more important than my relationship with God. And so I hope this helps. I'm sorry that this took me a few days to get to you, but there was a lot of reflection that came up for me to get this information out for you. And I just hope that it helps whoever it's needing to help. I hope that that if you like this information, if this video resonated with you in any way, shape, or form, please share it. Please like, please subscribe. You will greatly help me out, my channel. I am a new channel. I'm newly starting to come out with my experience in life, and I'm being guided by God and the angels who surround me to step up and into my position that God wants me to have. So thank you for sharing this video with me, sharing this space with me. And I do hope that in some way, shape, or form, something that I shared with you was of magnitude for you in your life, and maybe opened up a way to get out of a circumstance that might be causing you to be stuck. So until next time, I wish you many blessings, much love, and please take care.